It seems to me that a special set of events need to happen to trigger the human potential. And maybe there is a state of grace that I have begun to believe we should consciously work for world experiences of communion, of linkage, of all people on earth, so that we can experience that it's true that we have these powers and start to manifest them.
My name is Joe. I'm an educator, and I'm wondering if you have any idea how to persuade ourselves to convince ourselves that, in a sense, we are the great minds of the present, and that we have that inner potential to change the course of the world's future, just as people such as Buddha and Christ and Newton and Einstein did in the past.
If you study evolution, you see it is a consciousness-raising experience, or an intelligence-raising experience, from molecule to cell to animal to humans, and now to us becoming a planetary civilization. I think what is happening is that each of us is being stimulated to act at our best, which is what those earlier people did. And more and more and more of us are going to act at our best, and we're approaching what I call a new norm, where we will all be able to be in a state of Krishna or Christ consciousness, and we will activate our mental and spiritual capabilities so it will become normal. And I think it's very important that we don't think it's just something that happened in the past. It is us, and we can do it, and that's the direction of evolution, is that we should do it. It is coming naturally, in other words.
I'm not really convinced of the technical validity of much of the scripture.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, when we discover there's no up or down in the universe, you can't have an ascension. So I don't require the ascensions, and I don't require many of the things that are discussed. All I'm deeply impressed is that little child should lead them.
Yes.
Those things I really feel are very fundamental.
Yes.
They go back in the earliest of the scriptures we can find of the earliest of thinking of humanity around the world. So I look at all the different religions as having enormous insights, and people driven to write something out. Must have been an enormous task to do so in the early days.
Yes.
So I don't take up any. I'm very remote from any organized religions anymore.
Oh yes.
And because I see if we're going to be where you don't need any intercessor between yourself and God. Yes. I'm using very modern terms. I say everybody has a hotline to God.
Yes, I really believe that. And something you said in your book, The Critical Path, I have found to be very important. You said you thought we had 5 to 10 years to make a shift from weaponry to livingry. And if we make that shift, we can be abundant. We can be 4 billion billionaires on this planet because the universal resources are available to us. And you said one of the keys is that the people know what the potentials is. And we need a swift telecommunications revolution in order to communicate to the people directly, over and beyond the institutions like the nation state and the large corporation. You know, I've thought of the mass media as having a disease which I call dysempathitis. It's a communicable disease. It really has gotten sick in that it isn't sensitive to creativity, innovation, and growth, and it picks up pain. And as we start putting information of creativity and innovation through, eventually I think it will get it, and then we'll have a system wherein everybody can know. And I think that what we're doing tonight and the many other types of programs which tell people their potential to have humanity 100% successful is an essential part of ourselves surviving. And I just wanted to tell you that one of the things that I'm doing due to all this experience is initiating a World Good News Network that will aim at having a 24-hour-a-day channel on television and radio to tell people what the options are, what the potentials are, and how we can act together for a world that works for everyone. And I'd like to dedicate it to you. That the World Good News Network. So that we can bring together the people who have ideas on how the world will work, because once you know that, you cannot ever again accept that we need to move to destruction and to scarcity and to violence.
Here in Cincinnati and in Columbus, we have interactive television. I'm wondering if that form of the mass media might be useful to you in your network and how you might see it being used.
I think interactive television is extremely important because it makes it possible to have a direct dialogue between these kinds of ideas and individuals. And since it's the individuals who have the integrity and can make the new decisions, when it becomes clear that individuals are responding in certain ways, the whole system will respond to those individuals. And I think the political system can be transformed. I really don't agree that politics need necessarily disappear. I think it will be transformed into the coordination of the resources and elements in such a way that the world works for everyone. I think we need a new set of leaders that come up and understand what I call synocracy, synergistic democracy, wherein we're attempting to play the win-win games, and how to activate people at the local level and empower people to do it for themselves. And interactive television will probably lead to synergistic democracy.
To me, humanity really has been then developed all the way from naked and ignorant, learning all kinds of things, but finally we're all here together on this planet. World War I is the beginning of awareness that there might be some other people in this world.
Yeah.
World War II brought us very much closer. Today, everybody around the world knows all about everybody else around the world. So it really is humanity is going through an evolutionary change where nations are obsolete because they are barriers to getting together. So nations are going to have to go. And I feel that what's going on right now is human beings are going through a sort of final examination. Is the invention human? A really good invention? Does it have the courage to really go along with this mystical insight that God tells you this? Not because nobody else is saying this. You have the courage to say that yourself.
Yes.
As Christ did. I think that we're at a point where economic systems, political systems are not being tested at all. It's a question, does a human being have the integrity, which means both a faith and a courage and a competence to actually assert itself to get together one with the other.
Bucky,
Yes.
Bucky, when you say that political systems and economic systems are not being tested, what do you mean they're not being tested?
I said I feel that humanity is going through a final examination as whether it's a good invention.
We're being tested.
To be allowed access to these great laws of the universe.
Yeah.
And yet it's been using how to destroy other human beings. How do you look out for your side and not look out for everybody? It's been doing made many errors. The question, does the individual have the courage to go along with his knowledge that there really is enough, and not to go along with the crowd, but to speak as individuals, each with access to God and get together, because God makes it clear we should get together.
Wondering if either of the guests have considered serving in an official advisory capacity to, say, the President of the United States, which would really afford the greatest opportunity to affect change, which is really what it's all about anyway.
But I think the era of humanity is a thing that the problem can be solved by politics. It cannot be. That's simply a policy of how you spend some money and this and that. Right now it is a question of, I say, really the integrity of humanity, and not something that's going to be solved by politics. So politics are about to become obsolete. We had the umbilical cord, absolutely logical, beautifully designed to produce life. But once you're out of the womb, you can get rid of the umbilical cord. Doesn't mean the umbilical cord wasn't a good invention. So nations and politics have all been very good inventions in their day. And we have nations because humans, not knowing about other humans, find a place where nature, through photosynthesis, is producing food, and you find you can survive there. And so you find yourself being invaded by other people who have not been so lucky, so it's a matter you have a national defense because one on the other side is going to die. And so that's why nations develop as human beings have been isolated geographically for thousands of years. And those who do survive under those particular geographical conditions have only others who've survived under the same geographical conditions. This concentrates the type of genes that survive there. For instance, Russia had, when she integrated the USSR, there were 148 nations, but people look very different. They've been literally isolated for thousands of years. So nations means just that. People who've been isolated, don't know about any other human beings, looking out for themselves in the wilderness. Somebody comes along trying to displace them, then they defend themselves. Evolution is now integrating all of this.
Now, we are just getting the technology through our mass media, especially television, to reach directly to people everywhere on Earth. And I've been fascinated to hear that you have, for example, technologies where you can record 100 to 600,000 telephone calls in 1 hour. The people can respond on television and they can be recorded by computer. So it seems to me that we have a method now of people speaking in response to what they see on television and directly asserting their integrity. And that this might be the swift telecommunications revolution, to get information out and give people a chance to connect, to respond, and to express their opinion through the television system.
Oh, we will use the technology, all right.
Yes, a participatory democracy.
But I say the big thing is really the courage to go along with their own deepest conception.
Yes, yes.
Will that kind of communication be in the best interest of those who essentially control, say, commercial television? Perhaps some of the larger institutions that advertise themselves on something like commercial television. How do you see that changing?
Well, I think that we need to have a subtle evolution. I'm not a revolutionary. I don't believe that attack will work. I think if we can clearly put forward the attractive, creative options and people start acting on them, it will not necessarily be acceptable immediately to the existing system, but eventually it might attract the existing system. So that rather than going through a revolutionary mode, we're going through an evolutionary mode of attracting ourselves forward to the next phase.
And so it may also attract some major corporations that might have that as part of their future plan.
I think eventually we need to convert the military-industrial complex from... It's an interesting thought that if the military-industrial complex were converted to livingry, to building new worlds on Earth, new worlds in space, they have the skills, the technologies, the logistical capacities to do it. And what is required for that conversion? That's really the point. And I think it's several things, many things. One is the people demanding it everywhere in the world.
We have to have the courage to recognize that perhaps we have enough nuclear weapons
The
now.
people have to act. And secondly, I believe we need a state of grace. I think we need to pray. I think we need to have a planetary connection. I think we need to call upon something beyond humans to work with us. If you want to call it the God force, the evolutionary pattern, whatever, we need to call upon the designing intelligence to cooperate, co-create with us.
The criteria we have on our planet right now, the success, making money, is to be a realist, and you have to make money. And we have to realize that making money and making sense are diametrically opposed. and we're going to have a humanity that's going to dare to realize that it's transcendental to making money.
Yes.
We're going through a great economic crisis of money. And there's going to be a lot of people who might want to push some buttons for some bombs because they're afraid they may lose their money. And those are the kind of tests we're really up against, dear fellow. Very, very big way as to whether the truth is what counts or is it a man-made criteria like money. That's an enormous test we're coming into.
I would like to ask Mr. Fuller if his view toward making money would be changed if the concept of businessmen changed to consider money as a byproduct for doing a job well, for a job well done, instead of a primary objective, watching the bottom line each quarter to see that it's better than last year's?
I wrote a book called Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, and you might like to look at that. And in there I differentiated between money and wealth. Wealth is the extent to which humanity has actually already taken advantage of their experience and their knowledge of principles to take care of how many lives for how many people for how many days. That really is the real wealth. How many days do we really have we organized ourselves to carry on? And I find that wealth itself, capability, it consists of two phenomena: energy, the physical, and the metaphysical. And the physical is all energy, and we now know quite confident that the energy of the universe is inexhaustible. It is a regenerative affair, so that the physical side cannot decrease. The metaphysical side, which is know-how, every time we use our know-how, we always learn more. You can't learn less. You may learn what you thought was true. That doesn't work. I find because the physical cannot decrease and the metaphysical can only increase, wealth can only increase.
Yes, I'd like to just add to that. If you assume the best possible world in which the technology is appropriately used in an Earth-space environment, you can see abundance and material security given as a natural given, like we have inherited the biosphere, meaning that each individual will have the opportunity for creative function. And I think the meaning of work will shift from that which we have to do in order to survive into that which is our opportunity for creativity. And people will want more and more of it because creativity feels good. And that is a shift which is now technologically possible. So in that sense, you don't need money. The reward is creativity.
What would the world look like if it was working for everyone, from your vantage point?
It looked very beautiful. The way it looked when you're a little child and you saw your first sunlight. Beautiful dew on the garden.
I think Bucky is right. It would be very beautiful. And the way I've tried to imagine it is it's taking all our potentials and imagine them working fully, the personal as well as the technological. And what I've seen is that we would be in a state of whole-centered Christ consciousness as a new norm. Everyone would be experiencing the love of each other as themselves. We would be in an earth space or universal environment. We would be restoring this earth. We would be extending our environment into space. We would be building new worlds in space. We would be traveling to far distant galaxies. We would be probably in a universe full of life and find we are just being born to a universal community. I think through our biological revolution and our healing powers, we'd find that we do not need to get disease, that we can heal ourselves, and eventually we can regenerate our bodies and have extended lives so that we will choose to die and we will choose to live on. And we will not die like animals, choicelessly. I believe that when our information revolution is complete with mass communications, cybernetics, robotics, that it will be just like Jesus said, look at the lilies in the field, how they grow, and they toil not. That work as we know it will pass away. The whole planet will have a nervous system that makes it possible for the crops to be monitored and the food to be distributed. And the physical work will be done by exquisite intelligence of human and machine, and we will be free to discover what it means to be fully human. And a child born, when all of that is working, would be a citizen of the cosmos. You know, it's said we've only used 5 to 10% of our potential. We are going through the final exam. If we get through it without destruction, even in 1 or 2 generations, a child born in a cosmic civilization with all that capacity, each will be the genius that we are. I see a world of genius. And I think the most thrilling thing, Michael, is that we're the generation of the shift. That means we're a very special generation of all the generations on Earth. And in some sense, every man, woman, and child alive now needs to know that if they can act out of their integrity, that the world can have an ever-evolving future, greater than anything that has been conceived except the great mystics who did see it, all of them. So it's the most thrilling time on earth to be alive. Each of us needs to know it, and we need to communicate it out, and the people need to invent how to do it. That's about where we are.
Bucky?
I think it's very important to realize you can't do any good thinking if you have good and bad people.
Right.
Inasmuch as we clearly were designed to learn by trial and error, there are a great many people who are out there making mistakes, very big mistakes for us all. And I don't look on them as bad people at all. Mm-hmm. I'm absolutely convinced you're not allowed in on thinking if you have good and bad. Mm-hmm. You have to understand the scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So that we are learning some very big lessons right now. The challenges are enormous. And I feel sad about people who are having to make the mistakes and often be blamed. But the sad thing about the media has been up to now, learn that if you want to have a newspaper or whatever it is, you have to make some money. And learn that advertising is the only way you make it. You couldn't make any money out of a newspaper per se. And they find that the advertising goes where the largest readership. So the owners of newspapers have time and again found out what kind of news sells best, and unfortunately they found bad news sells better than good news. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about having your good news world, it is not something that can make money. Anybody's interested in it, they won't back you if they want to make money.
No, we're not. That's
part
right.
of the integrity.
We're just going to make life. It's going to be out of love. And two things are very attractive to people on television now, is violence and negation and love. Well, this in a way is the next step of love. So I think it will work.
Number one, could you give us concrete suggestions how we here can verbalize and vitalize the philosophy we've been hearing tonight? And point B, have you ever considered serving on an advisory capacity at a university?
I have thought very much about a meta-curriculum for the future. And I believe we need a new education altogether, in which the student from grade 1 all the way up would be introduced to the idea that each student is coming in to learn how to participate in the co-creation of the future. And they would study the whole of cosmic evolution as the spine of the university. And they would study personal evolution, how each of us can grow to optimize our potential. And then they'd look for their creative vocation to not simply maintain themselves or get a job, but to do that which most needs to be done that they can best do. And all of education would be a process of learning how to be co-creative with God and evolution. I would love to work with any university on that idea. And as far as concrete suggestions, and that is always the most difficult problem, just for the reason that Bucky says, it's a matter of individual integrity. And we're way beyond the stage of one person being able to set up an organization in which other people are told what to do. So each of us has to look to our own highest, meditate, ask, seek the kind of experiences that many of us have had, and then take your own steps. It's a matter of personal initiative, personal integrity, and I would make one suggestion, it's the word networking. It's a real important way of developing, is if you have an intuition of a new kind of education or a new community or whatever, see who else feels the same. And join together in small groups, and together you will find the way to do something new outside existing bureaucracies and existing limitations.
Barbara, when you say we all have the capacity, we all can do it, you do mean everyone, don't you?
Everyone. I really do. That's where I love, behold, I show you a mystery, we shall not all sleep, we shall all be changed. Every person on earth has it.
So it's really up to us.
It's up to us, and I think it's really a privilege to be alive when we know that our acts are going to affect the destiny of the future forever and ever. And I think if everyone really understood the critical path, that we have the chance to do it in the next 5 to 10 years.
I rather quickly give to you, we have universe physically has gravity that holds things together.
Yes.
Radiation is trying to come apart, gravity holds it together. I find that phenomenon we call love, which is the most mysterious thing everybody experiences, is then, I would call it metaphysical gravity. Love is metaphysical gravity. It holds the whole thing together.
Love is metaphysical gravity, and it's love expressed at the next level that will do it. That's
On
what I
that
believe.
note, we're almost out of time, and I just want to thank both of you, Bucky Fuller, Barbara Hubbard, for sharing yourselves. Certainly you're both examples of the courage that you were talking about that all of us need to express as we enter the challenging future. Thank you both.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Bucky.
The characteristics of the experience is that we each felt an electric presence and a field of light that was stronger than ourselves, and we felt almost being lifted up. And then we heard, if the positive could be reinforced in an exponential way, and you happen to be feeling alienated, and you got near that field, you go, whoops. That's been the tradition of the billions of years of history.
But it's just so subtle a change when you're going into outer space as compared to your own inner consciousness.
Oh, yeah. But we are
light.
doing both of them. So we might
More
as well
than
say
just
that
a dichotomous relationship between peoples and